administration to see how exactly they're going to respond if this continues to push towards the point of conflict. Because, John, what you have to look at is this is the red line, according to China. Taiwan is sovereign territory that the Chinese believe belongs to them. And so anything that infringes on that could lead to military conflict.
David Culver, as always, thank you so much for your reporting.
Our trust has been broken in our leaders, in our institutions, even with some of our friends.
Normal programming has been interrupted due to the activation of the emergency alert system. Please stand by. This is a national advisory broadcast. The abrupt interruption of television, cable, and radio broadcasting is essential to national security, as well as to ensure clear communication between the government and the American people. The following message is being transmitted at the request of the U.S. government. The Department of State have received reports from the Taiwan government of Chinese military incursion in the Taiwan Strait. The 7th Fleet of the United States Navy is ready to respond to any military action against Taiwan. Threats to U.S. military installations in Asia and to the U.S. mainland has drastically increased during the past hour. The U.S. military has increased the current threat level to DEFCON 1, which indicates that the U.S. Armed Forces is at maximum readiness and that any aggression against the United States mainland, government and citizens are imminent in the next hour. No action is required at this time. Please stay calm and bear with us as we gather more information as the situation unfolds. Stay tuned to your local media news outlet and ensure that mobile devices are connected to Wi-Fi or mobile data to receive the latest information. Normal programming will now resume.
Scenes of devastation. This is the front line in eastern Ukraine, at the heart of what risks becoming the most explosive crisis in Europe since the Cold War. This is where Ukrainian forces have been fighting against Russian-backed separatists for almost 8 years now.
I don't know if you can quite make out, but the colonel's telling us we've got to really keep our voices down here, because this is the area where the Russian-backed separatist forces fire on their troops.
경찰이 무고한 시민을 용의자로 착각해 물리력을 사용해 체포했던 사실이 뒤늦게 알려졌습니다. 경찰 여러 명이 쓰러진 시민을
이것은 테스트가 아닙니다. 대한민국 공군이 북한에서 발사되는 핵미사일을 탐지했습니다. 머리 대피소, 다시 말하지만 머리 대피소. 미사일은 10분 안에 인천을 명중할 것으로 예상된다.
This station has interrupted their normal programming to participate in the activation of the emergency alert system. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. A major power outage has been reported in the following states: California, Oregon, Nevada, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico and Montana. The outage is affecting the whole Western interconnection power grid. Cyber attacks against the United States have been prevalent in the recent hours, and while the federal government is investigating this, we ask all residents affected by this outage to stay indoors. Please use battery-operated flashlights in the dark. Candles are highly discouraged since they are a fire hazard. Keep refrigerator and freezer doors closed as possible. Federal and state governments are now working with FEMA to correct the problem and to restore power as soon as possible. This concludes this alert. Normal programming will now resume.
This station has interrupted their normal programming to give way to the national activation of the emergency broadcast system. All stations shall broadcast this emergency message. During this broadcast, most stations will remain on the air broadcasting news and official information to the public in assigned areas. To repeat, this station has interrupted their normal programming to give way to the national activation of the emergency broadcast system. All stations shall broadcast this emergency message. Stand by for an automated message from the President of the United States.
Good morning. As you may be aware, the tensions between the United States and the People's Republic of China have severed our nation's diplomatic ties. The United States will do everything it needs to defend our freedom and those of our allies by taking a stand for democracy. Thousands of American troops are fighting for democracy overseas as you listen to this message. Multiple U.S. military locations in Asia have been targeted by China, with our air base in Okinawa suffering the greatest fatalities. Do not put American resolve to the test. The U.S. does not seek conflict, but if we are attacked, we are prepared to defend for our own. Our country has made it clear that we would not use nuclear weapons against China or North Korea. However, North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile 25 hours ago, killing thousands of people in Incheon, South Korea. As Commander-in-Chief, I directed the armed forces to carry out Operation Red Dawn, in which the U.S. Navy, aided by a fleet of B-2 Spirit bombers, effectively destroyed various Chinese military installations and infrastructure, including the Three Gorges Dam. Chinese retaliation attacks are expected in the next hours, which is why I have ordered the evacuation of the following cities: New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Houston, as well as all areas within a 100-mile radius of a major military facility. These evacuation procedures are only precautionary. Local police and the National Guard have been called in to assist with the mass evacuation. I have also declared a national emergency. A curfew will be enforced from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. It is strongly urged that all citizens leave the streets before 8 p.m. As our first president George Washington once said, to be prepared for war is one of the most effective means of preserving peace. May we hold on to the resolve of America and what our nation truly is. May God bless America and our troops.
This is an NBC News special report.
Live from Washington, D.C., a live shot of our nation's capital. This is an NBC News special report as we bring you the latest information regarding this worldwide crisis.
The emergency alert system has been activated. This is a message broadcast at the request of the White House and the U.S. Department of Defense. As of 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time today, the President authorized preemptive strikes at the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. This is in accordance with the attack carried out by North Korea against Incheon, South Korea, 26 hours ago. Due to continued bombardment by the United States and Allied forces, 90% of North Korean military installations and infrastructure have been destroyed overnight. This, nevertheless, does not lessen the possibility of an attack on the United States. North Korean counterattacks are still likely, as we are unable to destroy all nuclear launch sites. However, because of our actions, North Korea is unlikely to re-establish and resupply. It is recommended that you prepare for possible attacks. Following our prior broadcast, major cities have been evacuated. If you are still in major cities, particularly on the West Coast, evacuate immediately. The National Guard will assist with evacuations. People who do not have their own vehicles will be transported via public transportation. Please follow traffic regulations if you own a car. This is not a test. The North American Aerospace Defense Command has detected the launch of 4 missiles. These missiles are believed to be carrying a nuclear warhead and is expected to hit Honolulu, San Francisco, Los Angeles and Vancouver within the next 15 to 25 minutes. This is an attack warning. I repeat, this is an attack warning. An attack warning indicates that an actual attack on the United States has been detected and that immediate protective measures should be taken. All residents of Honolulu, San Francisco, and Los Angeles should seek out a fallout shelter as soon as possible. If such a shelter is not available in your location, seek refuge in a basement or interior room on the lowest level of a sturdy structure. Take a battery-powered radio for use during your stay in the shelter. Do not leave your shelter until it is declared safe to do so. If you leave your shelter, you may be exposing yourself to radioactive fallout. Fallout is a byproduct of nuclear explosions. Prolonged exposure to fallout may result in sickness or death. If someone dies as a result of the fallout, remove the body outside of the inner shelter and place it on the other side of the room. If possible, cover it with a blanket or fabric. After 14 days, you will be able to take the body outdoors and properly dispose of it. Pets should be euthanized. They require further resources, which you cannot afford to waste. Take your pets outside and euthanize them as carefully as possible. After 14 days, you will be able to properly dispose of the body. When it is safe to go outdoors, radios will notify you. Do not go outdoors unless you are told to. Fallout sticks to clothes, and stepping outdoors puts you and your family in danger.
launch of 2 additional nuclear missiles headed for Los Angeles and San Jose. Seek immediate shelter now. Seek immediate shelter now. Seek immediate shelter now. Seek immediate shelter.
You are seeing shots of the New York skyline. Most eastern cities are being evacuated as we speak. Millions of Americans are heading out of urban areas following the nuclear explosion in San Francisco. We are getting raw video footage of the nuclear blast that hit San Francisco and the incredible damage. The whole city of San Francisco destroyed. While it may take up to 14 days for first responders to enter the city, the death toll is still unknown. The Department of Defense will send an update at any
This is a national advisory broadcast. The abrupt interruption of television, cable, and radio broadcasting is essential to national security, as well as to ensure clear communication between the government and the American people. The following message is being transmitted at the request of the U.S. Department of Defense in the White House. At approximately 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the President has authorized the launch of 6 hypersonic missiles aimed at Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, Guangzhou and Pyongyang, along with 2 ICBMs launched by the United Kingdom aimed at Chengdu and Shenzhen. This is in retaliation for the ICBM attacks that was launched against the United States that hit Honolulu, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Jose. Latest intel suggests that China and North Korea are unable to resupply due to the damage done by the United States and allies. The nuclear missiles that was launched recently will paralyze China's ability to restock and amass troops. However, counterattacks are still likely to happen. Everyone is advised to stay alert at all times, stay indoors and await local police and National Guard as they will lead you to evacuation. The emergency alert system will be activated if any threat is detected against the United States. Ensure that you have a battery-powered radio with you at all times. At this time, local TV news networks are still able to deliver a live simulcast via radio and live picture transmission. But in an event of a nuclear strike, turn it on to receive the latest news and updates specific to your local area. The federal and state governments are working hard to guarantee that the United States is prepared to respond to any given situation and that the threat posed by China and North Korea is reduced to a minimum. Keep your calm and take every precaution to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. Remain alert for further information.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. While the U.S. is still facing great threats from China and North Korea, we are here to bring to you the latest information from an undisclosed media bunker. Minutes ago, White House Press Secretary Emma Williams announced that the president will speak on all stations anytime. The speech that will be delivered by the president is a voice message that was recorded from an undisclosed location. We are seeing a raw video footage released by the U.S. Navy showing the hypersonic missiles launched by the United States earlier today. The missiles were launched from both land and sea. The Department of Defense reiterated that the U.S. is and will be able to respond to any further attacks, to show a force that the United States can.
Stand by for an automated message from the President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 48th President of the United States of America, James Marshall.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces in the South China Sea are in the final stages of military operations to defeat the wicked few. China and North Korea has unleashed to the world their true colors, which the United States will not allow. Just hours ago, the United States has launched 6 hypersonic missiles aimed at Chinese major cities. Coalition forces mainly from the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Canada, Australia, India, Turkey and Japan have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine China's ability to wage another war. More than 25 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases to help with intelligence and logistics to the deployment of combat units. We will defend our common security, our shared prosperity and our common liberty. We will not be intimidated. If the righteous men will not confront the wicked few, then evil will triumph. Anyone who doubts the strength or determination of the United States should look at our past. History is filled with discarded regimes that has foolishly tested America's resolve. We will not allow America and our allies to be blackmailed or attacked. We will not allow American cities and of our allies to be destroyed by evil regimes. We are prepared for any eventuality. The United States Congress have drafted an emergency bill to aid the federal government in evacuation and to relinquish our national supplies. The evacuation of eastern cities have proven to be effective. FEMA and state governments have drafted plans in case of an additional nuclear attack. The U.S. military has lost thousands of men and military bases in Asia during the past hours. This is why I have signed an executive order to ensure that our country has sufficient troops. My executive order has requested the drafting of all men between ages 21 to 36 to report for induction in the armed forces for deployment across the country and abroad. Your country needs you during this most critical time. We must fight for our freedom. We must crush this evil regime that has ravaged our nation and claimed innocent lives. Americans on the West Coast are battling the fallout due to the nuclear radiation from the blast. It may take up to 14 days for first responders to search the area as devastated cities are locked down. NATO has also met with an emergency meeting this morning discussing more options. The United States, NATO along with 25 coalition countries will make sure that this conflict will end soon as the United Nations is no longer of use. We will pass through this time of peril and carry on the work of peace. We will prevail. May God bless our country and all who defend her.
This is breaking news from Ukraine, where Russia has launched its first strikes against the country. This is a developing breaking news story, as we will cover more information for the hours to come. Several Ukrainian government officials have spoken with Western nations about increased military action along the Russian-Ukraine border. The Russian Navy began firing strikes against Ukrainian cities 30 minutes ago, according to the Ukrainian government. All NATO forces are currently deployed in the South China Sea, according to reliable sources. As a result, NATO combat soldiers will be unable to respond in adequate numbers. We're still waiting for Russia's foreign minister to hold a press conference.
This is BBC Television from Manchester. We are interrupting our normal programming for an emergency broadcast on behalf of Her Majesty's government. This country has been warned about the possibility of a nuclear attack. The current threat level is critical, indicating that an attack is about to occur. Remaining indoors is advised for civilians. Evacuations are taking place in certain urban areas. If you find yourself in one of these regions, police will assist you in getting to safety. Follow their orders without question. Unless otherwise instructed, you should remain indoors. It is recommended that you construct an inner shelter in the lowest and most central section of your home, away from exterior entrances and windows as much as possible. Following the strike, there will be a speech from Her Majesty the Queen.
Accompagna spesso una domanda: perché loro e non io?
The Pope has released a 6-minute video addressing this world conflict. The Pope said that war is the suicide of humanity, because it kills the heart and kills love. The Pope urged world leaders to resolve the current conflict and walk the path of peace through clear communication between nations. He said that only war that we must all fight is the one against evil. This is the first time the Pontiff appeared in live television since Sunday's Angelus.
We interrupt our programming. This is a national emergency. Important details will follow.
Nous interrompons notre programmation, c'est une urgence nationale. Des détails importants suivront.
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the Canadian government. This is not a test. The United States Department of Homeland Security relayed information to the Canadian government that Russian troops have invaded Alaska. Multiple Russian vessels were identified across the Bering Sea and the Pacific Ocean by the Canadian Armed Forces and NORAD at around 8 p.m. Pacific Time. With some landing on the coast and some stationed around 40 nautical miles off the coast of Alaska, Russian forces are said to have taken control of Anchorage, Alaska's capital, and is now headed to the Canadian-United States border. All residents receiving this broadcast are advised to do the following: stay indoors as a precaution, turn off all heating and air conditioning systems, and cover all cracks on doors and windows with tape, moist clothes, or damp towels to avoid exposure to probable chemical or biological weapons, since Russian troops are likely to have such weapons. Along the border, the Canadian Air Force and NATO forces have been reinforced. The Canadian government is putting out every effort to limit this threat to a bare minimum. Continue to monitor media outlets or visit for the latest news and information.
This station has interrupted their normal programming to give way to the national activation of the emergency broadcast system. All stations shall broadcast this emergency message. During this broadcast, most stations will remain on the air broadcasting news and official information to the public in assigned areas. To repeat, this station has interrupted their normal programming to give way to the national activation of the emergency broadcast system. All stations shall broadcast this emergency message. Stand by for an automated message from the President of the United States.
My fellow Americans, it is with disbelief that I inform you that we are withdrawing all forces from the South China Sea, in preparation for a possible Russian invasion from the north. The Canadian province of British Columbia has fallen to the Russian troops 30 minutes ago, as British Columbia is bordered with Washington, Idaho and Montana. I have ordered the immediate evacuation of these states. Our nation will do everything in their power to push the Russian offensive off the coast with our unmatched capabilities. Following a 2-hour conversation with Russian President on Ukraine, their president has assured me that Russia will work with the US and coalition nations to avert a full-scale nuclear confrontation. However, they have not followed through on their promises. We may not know Russia's cause on why they are doing this, but we will fight for our freedom until the very end. War is the remedy that Russia has chosen, and I say let us give them all they want. A short time ago, I ordered the United States Armed Forces to launch 15 thermonuclear gravity B-83s with additional 15 hypersonic nuclear missiles aimed at Russian cities and military assets. A joint operation including the military forces of France, United Kingdom, and India is now underway. France, the United Kingdom and India have also fired 20 nuclear missiles aimed at Russian military sites. This unanticipated combined response will integrate all instruments of our national power and cripple half of Russia's potential to conduct counterattacks against Western countries. Russian counterattacks are expected in the next hours, but we are prepared to sustain this response. The U.S. has stealthily built large underground nuclear fallout shelters in most eastern cities decades ago. These advanced fallout shelters can hold up to 20,000 people and have supplies that will last up to 2 years. As soon as you receive this message, the National Guard and the Armed Forces has begun evacuation operations nationwide. Since the nuclear bunkers can only hold a maximum amount of people, the accommodation has been pre-selected by the U.S. government. If you have been chosen, the National Guard will lead you to evacuation. Everyone is advised to prepare a nuclear fallout.
This is an attack warning. I repeat, this is an attack warning. This means that an actual attack has been detected against the United States, and that protective action is required. All residents of the continental United States are advised to seek out a fallout shelter now, and brace for impact. The North American Aerospace Defense Command has detected the launch of 40 nuclear missiles from Russia. These missiles are expected to impact the following locations in the next 6 to 8 minutes. Chicago, New York, Houston, Washington, D.C., Boston, Philadelphia, Las Vegas, Seattle, Nashville, Denver, Portland, Atlanta, Detroit, New Jersey, Fargo, Tampa, Salt Lake City, Oklahoma, and San Diego. These strikes are expected to destroy all of our major urban centers. Nuclear missiles have also targeted cities all across the world. A severe and prolonged global climatic nuclear winter will eventually ensue due to high nuclear radiation levels. A nuclear winter is a deadly period of darkness, famine, toxic gases, and sub-zero cold. Average global temperatures are expected to drop between 15 to 25 Celsius after the blast. The combined cooling and enhanced UV would put significant pressures on global food supplies and will trigger a global nuclear famine. Residents who are not in government nuclear fallout shelters are still encouraged to seek a fallout shelter. Move to a basement or interior room on the lowest level of a sturdy building. Stay away from windows, doors, and outside walls. Put as much space between you and the outside as possible. Take a battery-powered radio for use during your stay in the shelter. Battery-operated and hand-crank radios will function after a nuclear detonation. Stay inside unless local authorities provide other instructions. This concludes the activation of the emergency alert system. The broadcast will conclude with the playing of the national anthem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for